voice crack audio. Well, I'm back from home. It's been a while since I actually did a video on a topic. Having got the chance to do so, I had to wake up at 6 o'clock. Had to wake up at 5 o'clock a.m. and I left the house at 6 o'clock a.m. to go to Midtown Comics to get Batman '89. Apparently, that's the hottest comic of all the century. But we're not here to talk about comics. So on today's segment, instead of doing a TikTok, I might as well do an unboxing video of the Kamen Rider 01 Metal Cruster Progrisekey and Auto Tokusatsu stuff I didn't get a chance to make a video of. But we might as well start something simple. Now, if you're not familiar with Kamen Rider or Tokusatsu, this is the power form, and this is a power form that the main protagonist used in maybe episode 34, and it enabled him to become more stronger. Now, imagine this is the first Reiwa era for Japan, and pretty much I got this for maybe about $60. I got it for maybe cheaper from where I actually got it. So for the most part, the reason why I haven't really saw a lot of Tokusatsu products is because my connection was actually kind of down, and I didn't get the chance to usually review this. But this is it. This actually came out at the 15th of February, but apparently the hobby shop actually got it late due to shipping. So I wouldn't even mind getting this late. But there's more to come. So after this, after the watch that I got, I might as well sprain. But let's open this up to see what's inside. This is not my first time that I actually got a product from Japan. I got it from a hobby shop in 42nd Street, and they seem to be kind of good. The only biggest problem I have is trying to open the box, because sometimes these things are kind of hard to get, and because these are from Japan, you have to be careful with the boxing, because these things will usually sell for $60. Not sure why, but that's how they usually sell. But let's try to open this up, and here it is. Now, this was actually made by Bandai, because you didn't know. And this was usually only showed in Japan, so the only way you could actually get this product in possession is if you actually had to pay $60 to pay on the product and had to pay shipping fees if you want to get this overseas. Because usually when it comes to buying these online from Japan, it takes about maybe 1 or 2 weeks into business days. And really, this is the first time I got it from Japan. The first one was pretty much a couple of Takara Tomy Braids, but really that's really is kind of outdated. And sometimes what a lot of stores would do is that they will put tape. Now the thing is, I'm trying not to win the box because I'm trying to save any bucks that I usually got, and I can't afford to use these boxes because these are usually hard to get. But let's try to open this up to see what we have inside. Okay. Oh, but the packaging has been high octane. But this is it. This the moment we're waiting for. Voila. I had to make sure it's just well. Here it is, the Metal Cruster Harbor Progrisekey, and this is one of those things. Now this may take some time to get used to, but here it is, in all his glory. So pretty much, this one is actually kind of weird detailed. Bandai has this thing when they usually make the Progrisekey so accurate. And pretty much, this is actually highly decent. So I guess I should explain how a Progrisekey works. So pretty much, it's like a cassette tape, but except you usually just push the button of this corner, and it will usually play a sound effect. 2 or 3 times depending on the actual key itself, and it usually has a lot of quality. Now what makes this product keys different is that this one has a metallic tint. The sticker is actually kind of unique, and you can actually see the reflection. Also they put a lot of detail into this, including the front and the back, but it's not the design that makes it decent, it's actually the sound. Yeah, pretty much you press this button, and it does usually play the sound effect in the whole.
Hidden metal ability. Metal hoppers ability.
Yep.
Everybody jump.
Kind of decent. And that's not all. When you push the level, it actually plays an additional sound effect. It's kind of stiff. What I know so far is that it's actually kind of stiff for the beginning, and you can also pretty much put the actual panel, and you actually could see the actual light and sound effect.
Hidden metal ability. Metal everybody jump. Hidden metal everybody jump.
And pretty much it's actually kind of a decent concept, because honestly it's actually kind of it's just an innovation. And the fact that it's actually kind of shiny is, you know, kind of decent, but yeah. But you might be wrong, right? What do I do with this? I paid $60 for this piece of plastic. What's so important about it? How does it really work? Well, I gotta ask, because in order to use the Progrisekey in question, you must have a driver from the railroad era, and you need to have my personal favorite, the one and only
01 driver.
Yep, this is it.
01 driver.
This is the 01 driver. This was actually released when episode 1 actually aired. And this is the actual driver that you use to put the Progrisekey. Now, you might be wondering, how did you manage to get this? It was kind of pretty simple, because I actually got this from Amazon for maybe $60 or less, because my local hobby shop wanted me to charge $100 for this driver. But pretty much, this is actually a newest driver that Bandai has ever released it. So you might be wondering, how does it usually work? Well, in order to actually use the driver, you need to have a Progrisekey, and usually the Progrisekeys come in different size and shapes, but usually they have different colors to actually coordinate the actual animal inside. So the default Progrisekeys usually contain a button and actual flap. So the way this usually works is that it has a metallic pin you can usually have. And usually the way you actually keep this flip, the way you usually keep this flip is that you have to put your index thumb in the shadow, and we usually does do the job for you. So pretty much what makes the Progrisekeys different is that it's actually shaped as a cassette tape. They're easy to usually carry, and it's not a complete pain in the ass to usually take around. Now I will admit that this is actually a kind of a decent innovation, albeit, but you know, sometimes the design on this is actually kind of well executed. The driver, I'd usually wish that they could go for a decent design, but whatever. So you might be wondering, how does this driver work? Well, before you even put the Progrisekey inside of it, you have to press the button first, and then you have to usually put the flap. Now the way shit, I can't even say it right without stuttering. Alright, now the way I just gotta put 10. Oh, that's kind of 01. Crap. Now the way that the 01 driver works is that the driver in question has an NFC chip bit inside the driver. So every Progrisekey has a chip inside of it that detects sensitivity inside of it. And what you do so far is that you usually press the button, and you actually tap the Progrisekey into the driver. And what that would do is that You could that would give you a standby sound that indicates that you have to put the key in. So what you do instead is that you put this in and voila.
A jump to the sky turns to a rider kick.
That's how you transform. It's kind of hard to explain because every Progrisekey is actually kind of different. And the way the Progrisekey usually work is that sometimes in order to transform, you have to usually follow some procedures. Maybe complicated for each key, but it's not. And the best part about the driver is that you can press this again to issue your finishing move. And that will usually insert an impact, which will play a sound effect and the music from the Progrisekey as a third. So frankly enough, what makes this usually decent is that you can also use the actual belt, which I have in Cruster. And what makes this, if you want to take this out, if you want to change Progrisekeys, you can. All you need to do is just put this level and take out the key if you want to hit some more. And that's how you use a Progrisekey. And voila. Now, if you're new to this driver and you don't know what to do, here's what happens if you don't press the button. Now, if you're new to this, you want to, why can't I just put this in without pressing it? Well, if you try to put this, if you try to put the driver, sorry, crap. If you try to put the Progrisekey without typing the NFC chip in the center, you will get this. So what happened was is that when you don't tap the key into the NFC chip, it would announce error rights. And what would happen that indicates that you didn't tap the center of this piece into this actual mechanic. Or at least that's how I explain it. But my point is that if you don't actually scan this and press the button, it will not work. Now that doesn't mean that it could work either way. The same could be said if you don't press the button. Now, even though you may think that I actually put the NFC shit in, what happened? Well, this might happen. Yeah, that's what happens. It's kind of hard to explain how the mechanics work, but this is what happens if you don't press the button of the actual item in question. Now, the reason why I have to press this item because according to the show, before you even transform, you have to actually press the Progrisekey, scan this, and actually print this through. And that's the only way you can actually transform without screening up.
A jump to the sky turns to a rider kick.
And that's what happens if you don't even press. So that's usually what happens. And sometimes what you need to be careful is that sometimes you need to understand how it works before you actually use it. So now the metal Cruster hardball is actually kind of different compared to all the Progrisekeys. Unlike all the Progrisekeys you usually buy, this one actually has a mechanic where you actually have to put this lever if you want to transform. Now this is actually different because the way you transform with this Progrisekey is that you press the button and actually put this in, and vice versa. But what makes this different is that you don't actually transform, you just go under the standby mode. So what happens is that if you want to transform, you actually have to put this level, this handle, and that's the only way you can actually transform. Now it's kind of weird how they do it because Bandai never specify how it usually works, but for the most part I could usually assume that this is what they usually attend to. Oh, this is how they usually function. And you can tell that it's kind of transparent on the back, which means that it's actually kind of one of the kind. So let's try this out.
Everybody, shout!
And this, I think I did it wrong, but let's try this again. It's still going. It's still going. Here's how you transform. Yep, that's how you transform. So apparently, if you want to transform, you actually So in order to transform, you actually have to put this frap, and if you try to do it in this section, all it does is play it's like a standby sound. And sometimes what makes this weird is that this is the only driver that this is the only ProS keys that require you to actually transform 2 times. So to make this simple, you press the button as always, and you pretty much put this in. And you pretty much have to put this wrap. And that's how it works. And it's kind of weird because based on the quality of this key, it's actually kind of different. So fair enough, it's really kind of hard to say. Now let's see if the attack word does work. And it's pretty much different than I actually imagined. So pretty much, you could try to use some attacks. Now if I notice something, and that's how it works. Now this one is actually kind of more longer than any of ProS keys. Now, if you notice, it's actually kind of longer than the actual default ProS keys you usually get because it has more detail, but more all, it's really kind of a decent tool. And supposedly, it's not that much of a bad ProS key. It's just it's kind of too bulky, but if you want to have a super foam, you can actually have this. Now, one thing I like about it is that they actually put a lot of detail. They added a refraction in the actual panel, but for the most part it's actually kind of decent. And that's pretty much it for this. Now speaking of ProS keys, there was a lot of ProS keys being distributed for this one. Now the Tier 1 driver has a lot of ProS keys. I'm just gonna call them P keys because I can't say ProRise without misspelling it. Speech impediment, I know. So pretty much the P keys, as you might notice, the P keys usually have a different design in the set. As I mentioned before, there are maybe a total of maybe 20 or maybe 30. I don't even know how many P keys there are made by Bandai, but for the most part, each individual P keys have a QR code on the back for the Gunbalancing arcade game. And pretty much the way it usually works is that you scan it and you get a power up, and for the most part it's not usually bad. Now besides that, there's also a couple of unique ProS keys that the show has handled, and there's actually more than one ProS keys that the show has. Now keep in mind that I've been buying 01 motion dice. I've been buying 01 motion dice since the show actually came out, and I'm trying to keep up to date because I was not that up to date with Kamen Rider, and I kind of missed out on the show because I was usually busy with work. But for the most part, Bandai has made over maybe I say 16 ProS keys in the past, and I wouldn't even know how many So if you notice from my correction, I usually maybe spend 30 or 60 more. Some of these I usually got from my hobby shop, or some I got from Amazon, some I actually got from eBay, and for the most part, I actually got these things from maybe some cheap or maybe something expensive along the way. But for the most part, I've been collecting these Progrisekey since the show actually premiered. And if you notice, there's a lot to handle. So pretty much, as you might notice, I guess I need to count. Now, as I said, I'm not sure to give you a couple of tiers of how the Progrisekey are usually categorized. Now, a lot of times in order to get these, you usually have to buy a actual driver, a new driver for each. And sometimes you need to usually get each different driver if you wanted to complete your correction. Now, the show has a lot of soccer gun familiarities, but for the most part, I'm not sure to give you every detail. I haven't got a chance to do an unboxing video for all these because the internet was actually kind of down, and LTE connection sucks so bad, so not my fault. But for the most part, I'm actually give you a guide of the default. Now, for the first keys, I'm actually tell you about what makes these usually special. Now, we also got a couple of limited, so we got a lot of limited campaign Progrisekey, if you don't know. Now, if you don't know what limited campaign means, it usually means that the only way you can actually get these Progrisekey is if you actually have to get a sort of movie or sort of effect. And technically what makes these Progrisekey usually different is that some of these are kind of hard to get if you're not fast enough, and some of these keys are required by a driver, such as the force riser and the shock riser. And there's too many risers and drivers in the show that really takes a lot, but for the most part, if you usually have anything, you get the idea. So pretty much, to give you more detail on what these are, this is the Sparking Giraffe Progrisekey, and this is the Guardian Hedgehog Progrisekey. Now, the Sparking Giraffe key was only available as a Toys R Us exclusive. The way you actually get this is that you actually have to wear a driver around your waist, or in the store, and the store owners will usually give you one, depending on the price, maybe for free, and this was only exclusive for maybe a limited amount of days. And apparently this usually sells maybe at cakes in Japan, but as I usually assume, these things are usually, this one was usually hard to get. Now, the Guardian Hedgehog, well, this was seen by advertisements around. The only way you could actually get this Progrisekey was that you had to actually get a ticket to the actual movie of the same name, which was Ray-Ra the Fourth Generation, which was a cross-border movie between CO1 and CO. And this was usually limited to people that actually bought tickets. And what makes this actually decent is the actual Marble S design on the back and the front. And this one was actually kind of hard to usually get because a lot of times not many stores actually have the stores, and the only way you can actually get this is from eBay or any other place. Now, which is kind of hard. So pretty much there may be a hard to get items. Now let's go to the actual default one because I'm going into a tangent. Now, the Amazing Hercules key, P key, was only exclusive for the actual storage unit that Bandai sold, and for the most part, this was only given to select members. But for the most part, it was actually kind of hard to get because a lot of times you have to be correct to the point. And sometimes this key was actually kind of hard to get due to the fact that many hobby shops didn't really have the bulk. Now, the rest are usually deluxe editions. For the most part, now for the rest, a lot of the, now this, can't really say anything. Well, we are pausing. Jesus. This P key is only accessible if you got the Force Riser driver, which is actually concluded, and apparently this P key is only exclusive if you bought the Shot Riser, which means that you have to usually get it if you want to transform. And sometimes if you want to get the P key, you have to buy the Shot Riser the shot rifle, which is actually equipped with this P key. So whatever. Crap, I can't even say anything. And the Mammoth P key was only exclusive if you got the Mammoth mech. If you got the mech figurine, the boxer was maybe 10 inches and 8 by 8 wide, depending. And the only way you can actually get this is if you bought the action figure that actually comes with the key. And this was only exclusive to people that actually got it. Now the dashing sheet, the washing sheet was only exclusive if you got the holster that was recruited. And where you can actually get this is if you actually pay about 30 bucks on hobby shops anywhere. But for the most part, this was usually kind of simple to get. For the most part, it's actually kind of not that simple. Now, as for the rest, the rising height. Now, as for the rest, the rising height is only exclusive to the 01 driver. It says that if you want to get this, you actually have to buy the driver in question if you wanted to purchase this. Because Bandai has this thing where they want you to go to extra steps to get all the drivers, but for the most part, it's not even that simple. Now the rest of the P keys you can usually get as the standard deluxe edition. The Lightning Hornet, the Passing Khan, the Flaming Tiger, the Flying Falcon, and the Biting Shark could usually get, and the Biting Shark and the Freezing Bear could be bought as a separate. So there may be a total of 6 you could get without buying the driver, but if you want to get this and the rest, you usually have to pay about maybe 60 bucks or more to get the complete set. And sometimes there's a lot of Gashapon and Sukagon items. And really, it's not that simple trying to get all of these, but for the most part, it's doable. Now, besides the Metal Cruster Hopper that I mentioned before, there are actually a couple of unique Progrisekey keys that have a different design set. So for the most part, what makes this usually these keys different is that we also got the Amazing Colorist, which is the Amazing Hercules on crack, and this is the Araking Alcino, which is a subdimensional evolution. Now, apparently, what makes these drivers what makes these P keys different is that this P key is actually a hawk of plastic, which isn't a actual Progrisekey key. This Progrisekey key was only exclusive to the Sergeant's rifle, which you need this to actually transform without breaking it. But for the most part, this has no value. But apparently, this is kind of hard to find because apparently the driver itself costs about 100 bucks, depending where you actually get it. And for the most part, if you wanted to usually get this, you have to buy the driver. Now this one was actually kind of different because instead of actually taking this out, instead of actually doing the frap, as you should, it does it for you without actually putting the level. So what makes this usually different is that the button is not actually located at the center. It's actually located at the other end of the actual P key. So this P key is actually different because it actually has a spring mechanic. When if you press the button, it will usually flip the actual panel for you without doing most of the work. Compared to auto P keys, if you want to flip this, you actually have to pull your index from, and then you have to flip it. And sometimes you can either do it the other way, such as flicking it as a twist knife. With this, however, you don't need to actually flick it. You could actually press the button and it does it for you. And you don't need to put an NFC chip. Although for the 01 driver you do, but for the actual driver that goes around this, it's actually kind of recommend you actually press the button, and it does a activation queue compare. And this is usually different because it does it automatically without actually doing most of the work. As for this, what makes this usually different is that it's actually on the left side. So what makes this different is that this is the only ProRes key where you can't insert it in the back, no matter how hard you try, because you can't put it in any other driver besides the Sergeant driver. So that's what makes this kind of well. Of course, with the driver costing $60 or more, you have to play your bargain. And you can tell that it's usually made out of plastic because it doesn't have the NSC chip, and this one has some little weight, where this one feels flimsy. So that's about it. Now this is actually kind of different in the sense that this is actually kind of different in the sense that these ProRes keys have a different design when it's usually transparent. So let me take back a notch. So apparently what you see before me is the Shiny Hopper and Assault Wolf ProRes keys. Now apparently you can tell that it doesn't have the ability name at the bottom of the text, and that's because this one is actually kind of different than other ProRes keys. So if you notice from the actual corner, the design for this is on the back, it's actually transparent. So what makes this kind of actually different is that you can actually see how the buttons function, and you can actually see how they usually work in the compare. And what makes this usually decent is that it's actually made of the gold on the front, and this is the only P key that doesn't really light up. And no matter how hard you try, you can't really see any light. It's usually a sound effect, and it usually does get a actual cue. And for the most part, they actually put more effort into the design, but for the most part, it's just simply the ProRes key. Now you notice that there's also a button, which I'll talk about in a second. This is where you put the assault grip into it, and pretty much you just put this wherever you have the grip in total. But for the most part, this one is actually a hard to find, high demand P key because it has gold on it, and it has really high details to get into this. As for the Assault Wolf, it does have the shiny interior, but the only slight difference is that it doesn't have a transparent back end, and it's usually the same as the Shiny Hopper, but it's just not transparent enough compared to all the ProRes keys. So pretty much, if you want to add more a double effect, you also need the assault grip. Now the assault grip is actually the only gimmick that you need to actually use the actual ProRes key. Now what makes the assault grip for this is that you can actually get this in a bundle for maybe $80. So you can actually get both the Shiny Hopper and the Assault Wolf in a bundle from any retail that you find. And what makes this usually different is that the assault grip costs about maybe $10. When most Bandai products usually cost about $60 or $30 depending on the actual key, but this one was actually kind of cheap in the sense that this is actually kind of economical and kind of affordable to the actual consumer. Pretty much a lot of people in Japan spray print this to give a decent design, and for the most part it's actually kind of decent. So remember the actual button that I mentioned before? You actually put this in and issue a different sound effect that you don't see before. And what will happen is that you get a decent assault grip. And what makes this different? What makes this usually different is that the assault grip actually activates the actual button in the back. So the way this works is that it actually activates a button around the back to indicate a sound effect around it. And what I like about the Shiny Hopper is like you actually see the CPU on the back and actually see the AA base you need to install. So you can tell you need these type of batteries to replace one. And really what makes this usually great is that it's really easy to take off. If you want to change assault grips, you press the buttons on the back, and you can actually take it out easily. Now, in the beginning, when this items came out, the assault grip was usually kind of mass-produced, and the thing is that the biggest issue with the assault grips and why it was usually available is that a lot of people have to change the grip multiple times, and in the bundle that they actually came in, the bundle only includes one assault grip, which means that you have to actually change that. Now, you actually get the second one each, but it's gotta be more of a pain in the ass to usually trip around because you have to be careful where you put it, and because this is usually plastic, you really have to be careful with this. What you want to notice is that it says assault bullet, but it says assault sponge. I don't speak Kaijin, but yeah. And pretty much what I got too, because I wanted something to do well for a cosplay piece, but I never got the chance to do so. Now you can tell that the grip actually has a different personality in a sense. It gives you more move space and length, but for the most part it's actually kind of decent that actually recruited. And pretty much it's really obvious. So pretty much, if you don't count the assault grip, I have about approximately, let's see what we have. Crap. We have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 prize keys in total. So as of today, I got about 20 prize keys in my possession, and this was usually kind of hard to get because a lot of things in Japan is not that accessible, but for the most part it's actually kind of decent corrections that I try to build up. My major ambition was to try to get every prize key as much as possible, in the sense that I'm trying to complete my correction as much as possible. And this is usually because I'm trying to usually do a cosplay piece, because I never really cosplay before, and this is my only opportunity to actually get some gear to get myself set up for different confessions. But of course I'm afraid that this might get stolen because how rare they usually are, and I can't afford to usually spend more. I might get another driver for another confession, but you know, I might cosplay as Camarado Salso in the future, but yeah. And pretty much, that's pretty much the entire collection of the keys. There's more to come. There's also a lot of Gashapon and Shogun keys, especially the P keys that are not actual deluxe or DX for any metal. So frankly enough, we still got a lot to handle. They're still producing more than I ever imagined, and pretty much this is the only unboxing video I've ever done. So we pretty much have 20 prize keys and still counting, and knowing Bandai, they might produce more, but I'm always prepared to usually get some merchandise wherever that time comes. There's a lot to handle, and I have to admit that this is the only correction that I managed to have. Now, beyond that, you already saw how the driver works, how to usually implement it. But I did say other tokusatsu items, and when I say that, I have more tokusatsu items in stores. Maybe because I didn't get a chance to do an unboxing video for each, because maybe it was kind of spotty before then, and now it's actually high speed before. So for the most part, it's really kind of doable from the get-go. And I have to admit, it's actually kind of interesting that I managed to get a lot of these keys, and because I missed out a lot of Kamen Rider content in the past, and I never got the chance to usually never got the chance to actually watch the show, even as a kid, because I didn't have access to the internet, or I did have it, but there was some sites I had to be careful on. So for the most part, I got everything I have an elf. So there's also other drivers of the same show, but a lot of times I didn't have the actual batteries for them in the back. So for the most part, I might show them if I have if I have the time to do a video on them. But for now, I have a lot of Progrisekey keys that I want to show off. And this was a huge collection that I managed to gather, mainly because the whole collection takes a lot to usually handle. And 9 times out of 10, it wasn't that much simple trying to buy these and try to keep the money, because these things are kind of hard to get, and a lot of these keys were usually kind of pricey depending on which market you usually get. But for the most part, it's actually kind of doable that I managed to get this beforehand. Apparently everyone wants to Cruster Hopper Progrisekey for no apparent reason, and I was more obligated to actually get this before they actually showed out of stock, but I actually locked out. So
Everybody jump!
that seems to be good.
Hidden metal ability.
And there's a lot of P keys I have to collect, but that's not enough. So besides the 01 driver, we also have a different driver from the Heisei era that I didn't get the chance. This is also a good time to showcase the watch. So pretty much, if you don't know what Kamen CO is, it's basically a show about all the Heisei riders in one show. It's more of a tribute than an actual show. So before we open this up, I'm not sure explaining what the Shiku driver is. So the Shiku driver has a different mechanic compared to other drivers in the past, in the sense that it actually rotates in a 360 degree. And this was actually a best toy in Japan, to the extent that it actually won the best toy awards in that country. So this one was actually kind of famous to the point, well, it has a lot of content, and there was a lot of gachapon and Sogagon watches being produced, and a lot of watches were so mass produced to the point where this was usually kind of, some of the watches were hard to get, to the point where you actually had to get the watches as soon as possible before they were gone. So pretty much the way you actually transform is that it actually has a different transform sequence, in the sense that you press the button on the rods, and you usually slide this in. Now this is actually kind of weird in the sense that because the driver in question has a lot of different mechanics that I never use. So for the most part, what you do is like you put the pins, and you usually just press the button on the top, and then you transform. So to recap, to transform, you put the watch into the pins on the center of the pieces, and then you actually press the button and spin it in a 360 degree manner. And pretty much what makes this driver decent is that this was on high demand, because Kamen Rider CO was the last show for the Heisei era, and before CO1 actually came by, this one was kind of popular to the extent that a lot of people bought the driver, and this was actually fan favorite. It talks about time travel to the extent that it's more of a tribute than an actual show. It has more fan service than the actual show, but for the most part, it has a lot of content that not many people know about. So pretty much you could tell that this series has a lot of decent reputation. But we're not done yet. So pretty much it's also the type of watches they use to transform. So pretty much what makes this watches usually decent is that there's a lot of decent watches that something around the Heisei era time period. And what makes this watches different is that it gives CO a power up of all the Heisei riders in the past, such as the X8 and the Beardo. And what makes this usually decent in the past is that the watches are usually kind of difficult or easy to get depending on which one has more value, but for the most part these watches are usually kind of pocket size. So what makes these watches so easy to get is that these are actually easy to actually carry around. And for the most part, what makes this watches so unique in effect is that they have different mechanics and different sound effects wherever you want to use them. So, and if you press the button again, you get an announcement of who they are. Now, I don't understand Japanese or Kaijin, but for the most part, you get the understanding. So, if you wanted to use this, you actually put this lever in the front corner, and you actually spin this again, and you then get the transformation, but and pretty much you also get a upgrade of all the armor times. So if you put 2 drivers, you get armor time, and it's really kind of decent to some degree. Now for the finishing move, you can press either button, but on the most part, the way you handle this is that you press each button on each side. And then you just spin it, and it's just a finishing move. And really, it's actually kind of decent to some degree. But for the most part, this one has decent innovation in the sense that you could pretty much spin this around. And this makes about the total amount of rider watches that I have. So what makes this kind of cool is that you can actually spin this around and it won't break. Maybe. Now, as I said, this one was actually a Bantam Imperium. So the watches are usually kind of rare in some cases, but some are usually more common. But sometimes you have to usually get in bulk if you want to complete a whole correction. There are maybe 20 Heisei router watches, including 4 different power-ups for the main cast. So for the most part, it's really kind of decent. And I broke the box. Oh my god. I broke the box. I broke the box by accident. If we only have tape. Where's the tape we needed? I broke the watch. The reason why I keep the boxes is because some of these items are kind of hard to get, and I didn't want to lose these because trying to rebuy this again is actually kind of hard. And some of these watches are kind of hard to get in the sense that, you know, these will usually cost more if you get on eBay, but for the most part, it's not that simple. And the box is ruined. And the reason why I take care of my boxes because, as I said, getting these in Japan is actually kind of difficult because trying to buy something from the West takes about 2 weeks and maybe more depending on the actual item. And I actually broke the box, but the reason why I keep the box is because these things are usually hard to get. If you're not that careful, you could use them and lose a lot of money. But for the most part, I've tried to complete my correction as much as possible and try to get every single rider watch before. And you know me. And sometimes the reason why I have to keep the boxes because, as I said, some of these things are kind of hard to get. And sometimes the tape is actually so thin to the point where you actually have to be careful of where you actually put it. And I actually ripped up the box. Hooray for me! I really suck at taking care of my stuff. But no problem, we actually got the item in correction, and beyond that, I'm actually kind of glad I actually got this before they got sold out. So pretty much that's how the rider watches work. You don't have to save the box, but you might as well save the instruction manual just in case you actually use it, because even then you need to correct all the paper. And I like to keep the boxes just for safekeeping because, as I said, these things are hard to get, and these are. Now, a lot of the rider watches function the same as any other watch. The only slight difference are the rare ones, such as the Final Form watches and the sound effects, which I would do a separate video. So pretty much, my correction from this one, the way I see it so far, I'm asked to correct maybe a total of maybe, I got maybe approximately try to count. I got 18 watches in my correction, and this doesn't really count this. It's supposed to be 19, but apparently this one was actually kind of a defect that I got from Amazon. So apparently, pretty much the biggest problem is that there's also an audio glitch. Yeah, you can tell that the audio sounds kind of distorted in the sense that it's kind of glitchy and it's kind of, buggy. It might have something to do with the batteries on the back. I'm not sure if it has something to do with the batteries being dated, because I think they actually didn't really change the batteries as much as possible. I don't know. If that was the case, I might as well, get another one from Amazon, or it's not a legitimate retailer, but for the most part, this one is actually a defect. I try to be on my correction on all the right watches as much as possible, but it's actually kind of more time consuming. So that's pretty much it for the screwdriver. Now I do have another one that has batteries, but the thing is that I can only put a limited amount of batteries inside of them. I used to buy a set of AAA batteries that I got from Target, but they all ran out because a lot of these drivers need about three AAA batteries for each. So pretty much you could tell that I have a lot of space issues, and there's a lot of drivers that I need to usually get. But for the most part, we also got the Beyond driver and actually the actual ladder righteous that are usually different. Now, and we're not done yet. We're not even ending the video yet. We still got more. So pretty much this is the Beyond driver, and pretty much this driver is actually kind of different in the sense that you usually just put this on. So here it is. So this is the Beyond driver. What makes this usually decent than the actual drivers is that it doesn't really uses the router watches, even though you could use them. What it does instead is that it has these different kind of watches called the Mirai watches. And what makes this usually different compared to other watches is that it actually has a level where you actually open this to some degree. And pretty much what makes this is that let me start. So what makes this driver usually different is that instead of actually spinning in a 360-degree motion, it has a handle that you can actually use. It actually a handle where you actually could use, and the way you actually put the polarized, the way you actually transform it is actually kind of different compared to the Chiku driver, and it says that instead of actually transform with a spinning mechanic, you actually put this in a way where you actually put this driver on the actual Kono. And when you place the Mirai watch inside the slot, it plays a small sound effect. Now, if you want to transform 1%, you have to press the button and it actually opens the door to the actual icon. And then you just put a lever in and presto, And pretty much that's how it usually works. So pretty much what makes this router watch usually different is that what makes this tripod different is that it doesn't really have a rush. To attack, you usually just put this through. And pretty much it has a decent shape to it. So the way this usually works is that it uses a mirror-like function compared to the game mode driver, and it says it actually has a mirror in between. So pretty much you can't see it, but it has a mirror where it actually reflects the actual kernel. And pretty much what makes this actually kind of unique is that it actually has a mirror site that you actually put it in. Now the mirror is actually stuck inside, and the only way you could usually put this in is if you actually screw this off. But so far it has a plastic bit and a mirror to actually simulate the actual attack. And also have an LCD screen which makes it mostly variable. And this is the only driver that is kind of high demand. There are maybe 3 forms of Dark Wars. There's 2 Wars, the Ninja, which is the Shinobi, the Quiz, and the Kikai Mirai Watch. So far I only got the Shinobi watch because the other 2 were kind of hard to get, and I only got the Ginga. Now the Ginga Mirai watch is actually kind of different in the sense that you transform into 3 different forms. So it's a watch that has 3 forms into 1 device. So pretty much what makes this different is that this is the final form for Wars, and it says that it's supposed to be the most powerful one. And this one has a decent detail into it in the sense that it has 3 corners into it. So what makes this different is that it has 3 sides, and it's more lateral than any other watch in the sense that the audio seems kind of increased, and pretty much it's actually high quality for the final form. Now the body is actually kind of different in the sense that you just usually press this, and pretty much this is actually kind of innovation. The stickers are actually kind of shining, and you get the whole scenario. So pretty much you could try the Tayo, you could try the Ginga form, you can also try the Tayo, and you also try the Wakusei. So pretty much this is actually kind of different than other watches because instead of playing the default standby mode, it plays a different standby mode if you actually pick this through. So what makes this different is that it doesn't really press all the buttons. And it plays a different sound effect that it's not present in all the Mirai watches, but you get the idea. And what makes this different is that you don't really see the picture at the upper left corner of the driver. What you see instead is that you actually see the actual audio. And pretty much what makes this usually different is that the way you actually attack, it plays that hyper drama bass sound effect. Yeah, it's actually kind of different compared to our attack forms. This one was it's actually kind of decent in the sense that it doesn't really use a lot of the watches, but for the most part it's actually kind of different compared to the rest. But for the most part you could usually just use this to your own degree, and it's not that easy to usually configure. So for the most part, this one is actually kind of easy to use in the sense that you could usually just transform. One of the best part about it is that you could actually change this midway. And the cool part about it is that if you want to do double the attacks, you could use that chain set and make a combo to some degree. Then, although this is not shown in the show, it does usually work to some degree. And you can actually change this to some degree. And it's actually kind of a decent combo if you actually could change it on wheel. But for the most part, it's actually a decent rush. Has a great UO4 kind of type of feel, like a canteen. So it's actually kind of decent. And besides the Mirai watches, the hold up. Hold on. Anyhow, so besides the Mirai watches, the water watches are usually compatible with the Beyond rifle. So pretty much you can use any other Beyond, you can use any other water watch with the rifle, but it doesn't transform. It has a attack roof, and when you actually insert this into the slot, it doesn't really give you the transformation, it just gives you an attack form. And it's really real to some degree, but you know, a present is a present different sound effect in the sense that it doesn't really transform, but when you actually strip this up, it does totally see the actual face plate. And you don't get the transform. Now what makes this difference that in order to transform, you have to actually put a level multiple times. And it's kind of weird because you actually have to put a level 3 times to transform. So you could transform, but you actually have to put a level 3 times, and in some cases you actually have to press the button for a couple of seconds, and it's actually kind of weird. But the only useful part about transforming is that you actually have to put this you have to actually put the level 3 times, and that's the only you can actually get to work. And pretty much this thing is actually kind of useful if you wanted to put this through, but for the most part it's not usually possible to usually put it. And really sometimes it's also great if you want to transform to some degree, but for the most part, yeah. As we go right and watches, I forgot to mention that this is the CEO Oma from Water Watch. Now this was actually kind of different in the sense that it doesn't have a handle we could actually turn this through. You have to actually use you actually have to use the handles to actually turn the knobs, and it's actually kind of difficult. But you actually have to use the top corners of the edges to transform. So it's kind of confusing to say the least. But for the most part, it's actually kind of a useful feature. And this was actually given out to the actual moviegoers of the overcrowded film, so you get the whole gist. And pretty much that's pretty much it for the actual film. Now keep in mind that I was gonna show more of the Tokusatsu drivers. The thing is, I couldn't even show more of the drivers if I wanted to. The thing is that some of these drivers were usually kind of hard to get, and sometimes these drivers are not that easy to get if you even wanted to. So for the most part, So for the most part, I couldn't even get every single rider watch if I wanted to. So the whole segment has to wait until I usually get my whole correction. But for the most part, I could. And I don't know what to say. Whew. That's a lot to handle from the standpoint. Apparently that seems to be it. Pretty much that's pretty much it. I pretty much now the thing is that I'm asked to usually get these for a couple of bucks. But the thing is that I had to save the boxes and put it in my storage unit because a lot of these boxes are kind of hard to get. Now the reason why I keep the boxes because they're really hard to get. And pretty much the reason why I like to correct Tokusatsu because I'm a huge fan of Kamen Rider, but it's not my mind. But the merchandise is not a fan of me. So frankly enough, unless you are a millionaire, you might need to usually spend about maybe 60 bucks or more depending on how many you usually get. And a lot of times the Metal Cruster Hopper is actually kind of hard to get. So frankly enough, it's not a hobby to get into, but I'm one of the few that managed to get it to some degree. And sometimes these tapes are kind of hard to get through, but sometimes by being a weeaboo, it's actually kind of difficult. People think that being an anime fan is actually kind of simple when
Hello from Germany.
When in reality it's not that simple. And trust me, being an anime fan is actually kind of difficult in the sense that you need to have a steep ride and you need to have a lot of patience because these things are usually hard to get. Because you buy these things from overseas, you usually have to be careful. And these are all the boxes that I managed to save. And the thing is, I'm trying to save every single box because these things are hard to get. If you know what I had to go through to get these items, man, these are hard to get collectibles. But if you notice from my stockpile, these are all of the boxes I actually got. I probably spend more Tokusatsu products because I find that Bandai makes more quality merchandise. But for the most part, it's not that simple. But hopefully on my birthday I can actually get all the Rider watches and get every weapon so far. And I hope I can actually get more on my birthday, which is coming on this Sunday. So hope you guys are usually fully aware and actually are supportive. I actually appreciate it for the least. And pretty much there's more to come because I'm not even done with the boxes. But for the most part, we still got a lot more. Now, I still have a lot of drivers that I wanted to showcase, but I didn't have the chance to do so. Maybe because I don't have any type of income, and I'm still trying to become a cordial. Now, there's still more drivers to actually showcase. Maybe I still have the Sharp Riser and the Force Riser, which I usually got. And I also got the Sergeant Driver and the Force Riser. So I got maybe four drivers and still counting. So I already still have I don't have any AAA barrels inside them. So the only reason why they don't even work because they don't have any barrels to actually work about them. So for the most part, the only way I could actually demonstrate this is if I have some barrels inside them. But for the most part, it doesn't really work. But for the most part, this is the only time I actually could show this, and really, it's actually kind of simple if you actually have any batteries inside them. But for the most part, this is pretty much it. I know I kind of started a lot and paused and messing around my words, but that's because I'm actually kind of new to this type of unboxing video. I still have the Sergeant Driver and got the belts for it. So frankly enough, there's still a lot of more content to actually show around. So frankly enough, that's pretty much it. I want to showcase every driver so far, but the problem is I don't really have the batteries inside them. I cannot raise armor batteries on the May Protect drivers and the Beyond driver, and it's actually kind of time consuming to even drift around. So you might have to wait. But for the most part, these are actually kind of decent collectibles from the get-go. My only main ambition is to usually get every single P keys before the show ends, and try to get every single driver so I can actually rest in peace. Because frankly enough, there's a lot of coming around of merchandise I wanted to get. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to do so. Because we still got more to come, and I still have a lot of drivers to usually get. And it's not really that simple to use, but it's not that simple to use, but we still got a lot more to handle. So pretty much that's going to be about it. I honestly don't know what to say, but I think before we end this video, we got a lot of, I guess I can have a lot of comics to I guess I could do another review of comics because I'm a comic snob, and really we got a lot more to handle, so it's really kind of difficult. So not really that simple, but you get the idea. But till then, I'm thinking that's pretty much it. I got Batman issue 89, which was on hot demand apparently, and pretty much. Until then, I had to take out the trash, and I need to make a new TikTok, which I will link for y'all in the description if you guys want to check it out. But for the most part, I got a lot more content to actually bring, and that's pretty much it. So if you guys want to see more content, let me know in the comment section and I will be available. In the meantime, rat-a-tat-tat, sign off, and happy holidays. It's gonna be a long day to actually imagine, and I hope you guys have a decent holiday. Happy Valentine's Day, even though I miss it, and I hope you guys have a great holiday, because you might need it for the upcoming season, and it's not gonna be simple per se. So take care, sayonara, peace out, and happy holidays. You need it.